this is a little bit of a complicated diagram, but just very quickly to run through, in case you're not familiar with it, the core theory in the classical approach of how the person becomes messed up. And this is very much in the 1959 paper, but also there in Rogers' writings in 1951. And it doesn't, interesting, Rogers' kind of theory, as Dave Meehan said, by the 60s, early 60s, he doesn't really theorize much anymore. Talks a bit more about spirituality, but the kind of core theory doesn't particularly get articulated. But what in Rogers' basic theory is the idea is that you have this kind of experience. We come into the world as this experiencing being, a kind of phenomenological, if the term phenomenological is that first and foremost, we are experiencing. It's our experiences. We come into the world like as a baby, as an infant, like this kind of openness to experiencing. We start to recognize that some of those experiences associate with ourselves. I don't think that's a particularly important part of the theory, just that there are this is self. So we have these experiences and we feel vulnerable, or we feel angry, or we feel frustrated, or we feel loving. And all these experiences, and particularly kind of emotional experiences that we have, are an expression of what Rogers calls our organismic valuing potential, or organismic valuing tendency. They're all kind of expressions of our natural ability to maintain and enhance ourselves. So if I'm, as a baby, crying, it's because something has upset me, and I'm not getting the food I want, or I'm not getting the love I want, or something's hurting me. My responses to the world are a natural, this is my actualizing, the organismic valuing tendency is an expression of my actualizing tendency, that I'm responding to the world in a way that strives to maintain and enhance my being. But the thing that messes it up, like the kind of snake in the garden, if you like, is conditional positive regard. It's not conditional worth is something that exists within me, and sometimes people get that a bit confused. And the other thing, by the way, if you're a student and you're writing an essay about Rogers, don't talk about self-actualization, talk about actualization, because for Rogers, actually self-actualization, it's a bit confusing because Maslow talks about self-actualization, but for Rogers, self-actualization is actually the problem. It's the thing that pulls us against our own organismic actualizing. So anyway, so Rogers, within this world where actualizing organism, if everybody left us alone, we would do fantastically, which is that kind of humanism element of the noble savage. We are really able to cope on our own. But the problem is we get messed up because people judge our experiencing. That's what conditional positive regard is. People judge our experiencing. Now, it's really important to say that conditional positive regard, and this is a real misunderstanding about Rogers, conditional positive regard is not people saying you shouldn't murder people or it's bad to be selfish. It's not about our behaviors. It's about our experiencing. You have to remember that kind of phenomenological thing. It's like we have all these experiences. We feel vulnerable. We feel scared. But then people say that certain experiences we shouldn't experience. So it's not that I start feeling like, for instance, as a boy, that I shouldn't be selfish. It's that I feel like it's not okay for me to feel vulnerable. My fundamental experiencing in the world gets judged. Or a girl grows up feeling that she shouldn't feel angry. It's not, the problem is not a girl learning that she learns that she shouldn't hit her brother. It's that she learns that she shouldn't feel angry. It's at that very deep phenomenological experiential level that we learn these judgments. And then what happens is, according to Rogers, we internalize those judgments. So it's like I'm here in the world and I'm feeling scared because I go to school and I see all these big kids around me and I feel really scared. But what I've learned is that real boys don't get scared, that I shouldn't feel afraid. So I start pushing away that fear. And there's a kind of split within me between those experiences that I have that are associated with me feeling good about myself. So I feel brave and I feel strong. And sometimes I do feel those things and I feel, yeah, that's great. Good old Mick. I feel strong. But then the problem is when I feel scared and when I feel vulnerable, I don't like those feelings. I don't just go, okay, I'm vulnerable. And remember that vulnerability is an expression of my actualizing tendencies, an expression of that organismic valuing potential. But I hide it, I deny it. And then so I get this split. I start creating this split between who I see myself as, this kind of bold and confident, and that's likes going out drinking, and that's myself. But the parts of me that actually get really scared get hidden away, and I start saying that's not me. But the problem is, and so there's this split, and Rogers talks about this fundamental split. In fact, if you see the cover of the Green Book, you see these two circles, because one is the self-concept and one is the experiential field. And that's the fundamental Rogerian model, that what gets split is how we see ourselves and what we actually experience. Our real, genuine experiences get split between what we see ourselves. And I have to say, Rogers, he's a bit of a magpie, I think he is, or as a cookie, you know, he takes things from different people. And this kind of ideas about this split were taken or from various people like Sniggs and Coombe phenomenologists. But I think it's an amazingly powerful idea, whoever he got it from, this idea that our experiences, we're not honest about our experiences. I think it can explain so much with the clients we work with, how people get messed up, what therapy needs to do. And the problem is, so why is it a problem that we get split from our experiences? So there's three things here. And they're all based around the fact that these experiences don't go away. They are part of ourselves. So one, why is it a problem if I deny my vulnerability? It's a problem because that vulnerability doesn't go away. It's part of my organismic valuing potential. It's like I have my sense of myself, but my organismic valuing potential in my actualizing tendency is pulling a different direction because things are genuinely scary. It's not that I'm imagining it. Things are genuinely scary. So I'm pushing that away, and then I'm caught in it. So the first problem with having this split is I'm constantly then caught in this battle. It's like I feel this fear, and then I feel shame about the fear, and I feel afraid about the fear. I don't want to acknowledge the fear. I don't want to be with the fear. But that doesn't make the fear go away. The fear is part of, because my organism is bigger than me. That my organism is bigger than my self-concept. It's like Mick is just one part of this organismic experiencing. So it doesn't go away. So I still feel these things. I just feel bad about them. It's kind of secondary emotions, as the emotion-focused therapy people have talked about. So that's one of the problems. And then the second problem is because I'm denying these things, because they are things that are about enhancing and actualizing myself, then I'm pushing away things that are actually useful for me. It's like I might be feeling scared of, I don't know, like going out on a big pub crawl because I'm anxious about what it's going to do to my health. But I don't listen to that part of myself. But actually, it's pretty wise. I'm denying this kind of wisdom that I have. So that's not helpful. And then also what I end up doing is I'm doing things like I'm going to the pub and I'm getting drunk. And I'm doing these things that match my self-concept, but are actually outside of what organismically I want to be doing. So I'm staying there, I'm having another pint, and I'm not enjoying it. I'm having another pint because my mates are having another pint. And I'm sitting there in a pub, blind drunk, and really miserable because I'm living a life for other people rather than myself. So the whole of person-centered therapy then, based on that model, is about bringing these two things back into alignment. It's about bringing my self-concept back into alignment with my actual experiencing. It's about going back and coming back to who I am, and the conditions, the empathy, which helps me understand what it is that I'm really experiencing, the congruence from the therapist, which is modeling that alignment, the unconditional positive regard, which is helping me accept those things that I find unacceptable, are all about bringing me back into alignment with who I really am. And if we take that idea that kind of psychological problems are fundamentally about that split between my experiencing and my sense of self, then those conditions are what is necessary and sufficient to help resolve that. And over time, I can come back to being me and coming back to being who I genuinely am.